Good morning, world. Good morning for me, anyway. It's 8:58 in the morning. I got woke up this morning around 5 o'clock by a loud banging noise that sounded very much like someone knocking at my door. So my voice is shit. And I was trying for about an hour to read my book, which I'm making progress on. And the best I can do is, because I am not a technical person, is put up pictures as like props, and then read over top of the pictures so somebody can look at the picture while I read. And anyways, I started thinking about yesterday I couldn't find anyone to talk to because you can always find someone to talk about nonsense with. But I don't like to talk about nonsense. I like to talk about serious things. Small talk, really not my thing. So, I was also thinking about something I had spoken about on here. I'm 51 years old, so when I was 16 years old, I became chemically dependent on morphine when I had a spinal tumor removed. So, being a very, very, very inexperienced kid, I did not understand withdrawal or anything about that. At that point, I had never even tried marijuana. So I had no drug experience at all, and then I'm going through morphine withdrawal. So I start to go through this morphine withdrawal, and I feel really weird, and I don't understand why. And like I said in the other video, at one point I felt like my arm weighed 400 pounds. I was so whacked out of my head, and I felt like it was crushing me. My whole sense of reality was all distorted. And they gave me Halcyon, which some fellow on here told me was my first benzodiazepine, which I didn't know was a benzodiazepine, but I don't know if it's a sleep aid or what it was for, or what it was about, who knows. This is back in the day when they used to just throw handfuls of pills at you, and like throwing spaghetti on a wall to see if it's cooked. I've heard that before. You cook spaghetti and you throw it at the wall, and if it sticks on the wall, then it's done. That's what my mom used to say, though she never did it. I don't know why she always used to say that. But they used to just throw drugs at you like it's a different climate now. As a matter of fact, I got a letter in the mail from my insurance provider, which is a Care Source, and it said that unless you have any new prescriptions for opioids now, there's a 7-day maximum prescription for them. And the idea is to keep people from selling them or abusing them, I guess. So can benzos be far behind? That's why in several of my so-called preachy videos, I tell people, man, you got to be prepared for this kind of thing. You got to be prepared. Stockpile. Prepare yourself, because I got that weird letter in the mail from my insurance, and it was like no more prescriptions for opioids that are longer than 7 days. But I am digressing as usual. And I was talking about going through withdrawal and then taking the Halcyon and then thinking I was possessed by the devil, which is the story that I told on here. Because I couldn't move. I couldn't move. I felt like I was being taken over by something that was making me not move. And that was because I was whacked out of my head with morphine withdrawal and didn't understand it. And the effect that the benzo had mixed with the morphine withdrawal, not good. So I started shouting lines from The Exorcist, "The power of Christ compels you," to try to exorcise whatever demon was in me that was making me paralyzed. And the demon was a benzodiazepine named Halcyon. And they told me later that was a rare side effect, was that it's a feeling of temporary paralysis. Now I just had spinal surgery, so yeah, they might have told me that ahead of time, but I asked them why they didn't tell me that ahead of time, and they said the power of suggestion. And I'm like, how about this? How about I suggest that you take whatever object is handy around here and shove it up your ass? I was so angry because it's like, if you had told me that, it would have spared me all that terror and horror. But they were worried about suggesting side effects. Now every damn commercial that you see on TV is telling you every explosive diarrhea side effect from whatever medication is on there. Or they're trying to promote their medication, and they're telling you every possible side effect. And back in the day, now this is 1986 when this happened, they didn't tell you shit. They just said, here, take this pill. They didn't tell you what could possibly happen. I'm going to have to excuse myself because my nose really itches, and I have to do this because it really itches. But anyways, so after that experience, I used to have dreams all the time. Oh, okay, I should talk about my psychotic break. Part of my psychotic break had to do with that whole experience of paralysis and the morphine withdrawal. And that I grew up Catholic. I was terrified by The Exorcist, and I was taught that demons were real and all this crap. So when I had my psychotic break, part of it I remember was that I would like cramp up, and I would get in that state because I had believed, temporarily at least, that I had was possessed of a demon or something. So as the morphine withdrawal, and they didn't give me no methadone or nothing to drop me off of the morphine. They just said, no more morphine, no more gigantic opioid. Hello, here's this gorilla we're going to put on your back. You little 16-year-old bastard. So anyways, I ended up in the psych unit in Cleveland Clinic, is where I had my spinal surgery, was in Cleveland Clinic. So I ended up in the psych unit, and I keep feeling like I was possessed, and like I would cramp, my muscles would cramp, and I would stop breathing and stuff. And I remember there was people around me yelling at me to breathe and stuff like that. But I had gone so crazy that I thought I was possessed, and this demon wasn't letting me breathe or talk or move. So for years after that, well, let me just make the story long. I'm long-winded anyway, so let me just, instead of trying to spare your time here, let's just tell an interesting story. So I'm in the psych unit. They have a drug called stelazine, because like I said, back in the day, like they threw pills and drugs at you like they were candy in a parade. You know how how they have a clown or something throwing candy to the kids in a parade? Yeah, that's how things used to be in the day. I don't know how old the people are I'm talking to. So they put me on this thing called stelazine, and 5 days of my life were just missing. I mean, I just woke up. It was like a Tuesday, and I woke up on a Saturday. Or I came back to myself on a Saturday. They just like, this guy is so crazy, and he's having trouble breathing, and he's so out of his mind. We'll just put him under and sedate him completely. And I've never had Thorazine, but I think stelazine and Thorazine are like related somehow. And it's like zombie shit. Like I said, 5 days of my life gone. But I remember them standing around me yelling, breathe, and like I was just like cramped up and not moving and not breathing, and feeling like I was possessed and stuff. So naturally, since that was such a fun experience, I had nightmares over that for years and years. And in the nightmares, and they were the worst nightmares that I had, I would encounter a demon, and the demon would I don't remember him having a physical form necessarily. I don't remember the physical form, but they would try to get inside me and then stop me from talking. That's the main thing that it would do, is in the nightmare, is it would try to possess me and replay that whole event that happened in the psychiatric unit in Cleveland Clinic, and keep me from talking. So maybe that is why I'm a Gabby dude, because I'm doing a big FU to that whole experience. I don't know, but I like to talk, and I like to talk about serious things. And I don't know, it just seems like life is awful short to be talking about nonsense with people. It doesn't have to be like heavy all the time, but sometimes I'll be having a conversation with somebody and they'll be nearly as old as me, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm polite, but I'm thinking to myself, do you really want to be talking about this trivial bullshit at your age? I mean, I'm not talking about like your standard talking about the weather stuff. I'm like, talking about just nonsense, you know. And I figured out kind of what it is like people walk around, I think all of us walk around with a great deal of emotional pain, and we all have our sensitive spots and inside us. And I think that's why we talk about bullshit so much, is there's like not safe. It's safe to talk about that kind of stuff. It's like I go over to these people's houses, and you never know what you could say that could be wrong. It's like a minefield, man. You could say something that you think is trivial, and you're just trying to play along, and suddenly it becomes a whole big thing, and like arguments and fights would break out because there's all this unspoken stuff floating around. I'm like, man, that I'm actually scared to bring shit up, because of the repressed emotional damage that I'm surrounded by. And like, I'm emotionally damaged, obviously. I just told you I thought I was possessed by the devil, and that I went through a morphine withdrawal at the age of 16 and didn't even know what I was doing. And then, I'm obviously been through some shit. So, but in my point of view, it's like, I say this for the third time, is like, why should I be ashamed of that? That nonsense that happened to me, that I got thrown into a psych unit. And what exactly did I do that was wrong? I was born a Catholic. I was born to believe in demons. I wasn't a guy who experimented with drugs. I was 16 years old. I was given one of the heaviest opiates around and then dropped off of it with no methadone. And then, I got some benzodiazepine weird side effect, and that they didn't tell me about. And then I, thought I was possessed by the devil. That's like, why should I be ashamed of that? And like I said, for the third time, there's only two things in this world that people should be ashamed of, and that's the things that they do that are bad, that hurt other people, and the things that they don't do where they have opportunities to help other people. Like that story that I told about that guy in that wheelchair. If I left that guy out there in that wheelchair to fend for himself, and he ain't the nicest person in the world, that would be a bad thing. That's what we in the Catholic Church would call a sin of omission, because that guy needed help, and I can put myself very easily, having had to learn how to walk twice before in my life, I could put myself very easily in that guy's place. Of like, you're out there and you need to ask for help, and you don't want to ask for help, and you're just stuck out there, and your body doesn't work, and there's people around and they just don't give a fuck, and you're out there freezing your ass off. And so yeah, I'm tried to like call people yesterday, and I wanted to have a serious conversation, and I couldn't manage it. And I'm thinking, like, who can I call where I can actually talk about serious things? And there's, I got one guy that I talked to yesterday that he will talk about serious stuff, but he's an alcoholic and an admitted alcoholic. So, you know, I'll be like hearing the same stories or the same version of the same story, even without very little variation, like over and over again, you know, but he will talk about anything. But, you know, he's drunk, so, you know. But I was thinking about, like, I wanted to have a conversation yesterday. That's maybe why I have these conversations with myself. Since y'all talk back to me a little bit in the comments, but we're not actually having a conversation, you know. That's why I do this, is I'm sort of like talking to myself, just like, well, like I said, I'm never claimed to be emotionally right, but it's like I'm having a conversation with myself and doing a little self-analysis and whatnot. But those nightmares that I had for years, man, just, they were horrifying. And I remember one of them that I had where I woke up and it was literally the sweatiest I ever was in my life. And I used to work with my dad, like chopping down trees and stuff. I mean, I was just it was running off of me. There was an imprint on the bed of sweat. That's how terrifying the dream was. And, you know, I was shaking and stuff like that. I remember that dream very specifically, but other people's dreams are, you know, the details are boring. But the point is, I stopped having those dreams like a long time ago, but for years I would like occasionally have one of those demon dreams from that experience where I thought I was being possessed. Or, you know, in the dream, I was fighting a war against possession. And part of the possession was always, it would stop me from talking in the dream. So, so that's maybe why that's woven into my character, that I can talk and talk and talk and talk. I don't know, you know. We're all formed by our experiences in life. And so, yeah, I was thinking about that. And I think about those things in the morning. My voice is really not good this morning, so I tried, like, I don't know, 6 times to read that chapter of the book, which is called The Cave Bear. And it just wasn't happening. And, you know, I'm very determined, though. I tried for like an hour and just kept screwing it up over and over again, and my voice was hurting anyway. So, I'm really not sure what else I wanted to talk about. That's just what I was thinking about. I can always find something to talk about because I have had a very weird life. And I don't know how open I want to be on the internet with people, you know, because I'm not the most trusting soul in the world. I just don't have a lot of shame because I just boiled that shit down in my mind a long time ago, that a lot of the stuff that people are ashamed of or the subjects that they're afraid to talk about, it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's like, you don't got nothing to be ashamed of but what you do and what you don't do. It's the evil that you do and the evil that you could prevent, like leaving that guy out there to freeze his ass off in that wheelchair, that sort of thing, where I could actually do something to help but didn't help, you know. And that's sort of what I feel like when I'm making these videos. It's like sometimes people will tell me that they're helpful to them, and I'm like, well, then I'm doing a good thing. And that's how I started doing these videos. Was like, at first, like the first couple ones I made, I just was like desperate. You know, it was like in desperation because I was plunged into a 50% withdrawal. You know, they just cut my dose 50%. And like, I didn't know what to do. So I got on here and I started talking. But then, you know, with really quickly, I was like, well, I could do a good thing here. I could just be honest about this, not dress it up, and not, you know, not dress it up in a shirt and a tie and show people what this is really like, and what benzo dependence is really like. And this is just dependence. This isn't even addiction. This is just dependence, and it's been a freaking nightmare. And it's just been horrible. So I thought that I could do a good thing that way, and I like to talk anyway. So, and I don't have a lot of shame. I can't afford shame. I mean, I I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but okay, this might be a little strong for people to handle or whatever, but okay, imagine this. I'm 16 years old. Can't walk, not walk right. I can stagger around. And can't piss half the time because I got a spinal tumor in me. I'm a virgin. Never kissed a girl. I got 12 people in a room with me in a hospital, and they're doing sensitivity tests on me with a pin, literally poking me in the testicles with a pin in front of women. So, shame is not a luxury I can afford. And it's something that had to go by the wayside a long time ago when you go through something like that. Yeah. But like I said, I don't know how much of it of my life to share with people. It's horrible, horrible. Like my brother-in-law called it a tragedy, and I'm like, I didn't want to hear that. I said, I don't want to think of my life as a tragedy. What am I, a Shakespearean fucking play? It's not a tragedy. It's like there's an expression for that, but I can't. It's an expression from the Ernest Hemingway book, The Old Man and the Sea. And it's, a man can be destroyed, but he cannot be defeated. And it's like, I am not defeated. You can kill me, and I may die from all the stuff that's wrong with me, but I will not be defeated. You can't defeat me. You can't change who I am. You're not going to break me. All the stuff that I've been through. I mean, maybe if I was in Cool Hand Luke and I had to dig them ditches over and over again, like in Cool Hand Luke, he said, yeah, they broke me, because everybody was admiring him because he was so strong-willed and had gone through so much. And then finally he broke. And he was like, yes, massa, no, massa, to his prison boss who stole the show, played by Strother Martin. But yeah, I remember that. I remember various things from the many, many books that I've read, and that's the thing like I read is Santiago the fisherman saying, a man can be destroyed but not defeated. And anyways, yeah, the things I've been through, yeah, the emotional impact is still there. It's just the tears are gone, and I can talk about them. And it's just like I don't know how much to talk about. How much, yeah, how much to expose myself, to people. But to me, this isn't myself. This is just a ruined vessel that I have to live in. This is just a prison of flesh. And there's a book or a title or maybe a song, I don't know, but it's called Why the Caged Bird Sings. And I'm in a prison of flesh. I'm in a cage. And the caged bird sings because that's what it can do. It can't fly. It can't go out and find other birds. It can't go sit up in trees, but by God, it can sing. So I'm going to sing my little tunes on here and make my little speeches and do the best I can off the cuff, because I like off the cuff. I like spontaneity. I like let my mind make those associations and trusting that deeper thing inside people to assemble something interesting. That's what you have to learn to do when you're a novelist, is like you take your hands off the reins and you don't plot stuff out. You just like start writing, and then stuff starts to make connections. I remember when I was writing one of my novels, it was written all out of order, and I had no clue what I was doing. You know what I mean? I had made an outline of like an idea that I wrote a short story, and then I had made an outline of it. And the outline, it got scrapped very early, because I would sit down and I would let the words come, and then, you know, I would have this chapter, and it was written all out of order. As a matter of fact, I wrote the epilogue to it, like before the ending, and then I wrote like the second part of it. There's like 4 books to it within the one book. You know how they say book 1, book 2 in the middle of books. I wrote the second part, was the earliest part that I wrote, and then I wrote the first part, and then the third part was really cool because it was all out of order, and I pieced it together like a jigsaw puzzle, and it all fit. It was really awesome. So that is kind of the way that that's why I like to do things on here without a script. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not interesting. But today I go to the psychiatrist in about, I have to be ready by 12, and it's 9:25. So I need to get off here and move around and eat. And there's snow and ice out there. I guess I'm going to take a walker. Just, my leg appointment's on the 25th. And I don't want to, break a leg, sprain a ligament, tear an ACL, or, do some kind of serious injury. So, in this case, pride would literally goeth before the fall if I just stuck to a cane. My cool pimp cane, people call it. It's not, is it handy? No, it's not handy here. I got it stashed somewhere else, but it's just a leopard pattern on a cane. Because when I bought a cane, I figured I might as well buy a cool looking cane. So it's like a leopard skin pattern on a cane. But yeah, today I asked the psychiatrist if I'm pushing too hard. The neighbors really got on my nerves yesterday, like really got on my nerves, like I wanted to kill them type got on my nerves, because they were just completely freaking noisy all day, and I was like super edgy, and I was like, I hated all of them, but I don't, I'm smart enough not to like go up and get involved and make things worse. It's like I just don't. Yeah, I don't believe in like confrontation with morons, basically. If they're up there arguing about stupid shit and making a bunch of noise, knowing that they're living in an apartment building, what is it gonna, it's only gonna maybe like relieve some of my stress temporarily by going up there and yelling at them for making too much noise, or calling the landlord, or it's easier for me to just let it pass and just like ignore it. And sometimes you can't do that. Like when I had the meth heads up there, I didn't have any choice, but this is just noise. This was just a disrespectful, loud noise all day, and I'm going to ask my psychiatrist, like, am I doing this too quickly? Because this is, I don't know. I don't know how many hours without Xanax. It's well in excess of 200 hours. Somewhere between 200 and 250 hours with no Xanax. And not taking, I don't know, I think I got like 40 Xanax left, and I could have got a new script like at least a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So I'm not taking the amount of Xanax that's in the Ashton manual to take, because I figure I went off of those too. I don't want no benzos in my system. And I figured that, like, the less I take of those, the easier those will be to get off of. But if I can get my leg working, that's a game changer, because that means I can get exercise, I can get out and about, I can walk, I can go fishing, I can do things. And, and that I can get my natural endorphins, them fiends. I get my natural chemical good vibrations instead of relying on this Valium crap. But until my leg, until the 25th, and they can figure out something to do with my leg, I'm not dropping off of Valium. I'll just keep dropping it as low and low and low as I can stand. And yesterday, man, I wanted to strangle everybody up there. But it just doesn't make any sense for me to, like, drop off of the Valium while I can't walk, and while, every step is like a risk. I walked okay yesterday, but I was still using a cane, but I was mostly able to walk with a cane and not a walker. And so that part was good. But today, I don't know. My leg does not feel all that good today, and I have to walk on ice and snow, walker or no walker. And that could be dangerous. My niece was over here, and she spread out some salt and shoveled, but then like 6 more inches of snow fell after she left. So I haven't even looked outside to see what it's like, or see what I'm going to have to deal with or walk on. And yeah, that can make you a little nervous when you're worried about falling every damn minute. I've probably fallen somewhere between 6 and 10 times in the last 3 weeks. And some of them falls have been pretty bad falls, where it's like I was surprised I didn't get anything but bruises, no twisted ankles or sprained knees or anything like that, as far as I know. But yeah, talked to my psychiatrist about that, about how hard I'm pushing this, or how hard. He'll probably just say, well, you know best, But that's the thing. Benzos don't necessarily put you in your right mind, and a lot of times you don't know best when you're on them. And the other thing I was going to ask him is to make sure that legal marijuana, which is medicinal marijuana, is not covered by any medicinal insurance companies, which I think is the case. It's like, either it's a medicine or it's not a medicine. If it's a medicine, it should be covered by some kind of insurance. But my research and the feedback that I've been getting from people is that no insurance covers it, that it's all out of pocket. And I can't do that. It's, it's too much money. And yeah, I'm going to ask my psychiatrist about that directly, and to find out definitively what the deal is with that, because the one guy that probably knew I didn't ask was an actual pot dealer. I didn't ask him that question. I asked him other questions, about like what form does it come in, and in Ohio, it's the vials of the THC liquid that you put in vape pens, or it's edibles. That's the forms that that they give it to you in Ohio. I asked him about that. He said the street value of one of those vials is like $45. And then, like, I looked it up online, and I'm like, well, that explains why the cheapest place around here, it's $289 for your first appointment and prescription. So, I'll ask him about that. But it's like the hypocrisy involved is just... and just the goddamn offensive logic involved in that it's a medicine that's supposed to help people and has medicinal uses, but it's not covered because it has a nasty reputation based on Reefer Madness and Harry Anslinger, the first DEA guy from back in the day. He wanted to make some political hay, so he demonized marijuana, and he put it as a Scheduled 1 substance right along there with heroin and LSD. And the point of the scheduling system, I believe, is that the Schedule 1 substances have no medicinal uses. And that part doesn't make any sense, you know. I did a little bit of research, maybe like an hour's worth reading about it, and that's what I read. And it's like, this is all very, very confusing to me. And it's very offensive to my sense of logic that freaking XANAX, which is a heroin addict told me was harder to get off of than heroin, for him. He told me that this Xanax shit is it's Schedule 4, and freaking pot, which is easy to quit, and it has no physical dependence history. They did research on this shit. You know, it doesn't. You get addicted to pot. It's up here. It's a psychological addiction. There's no physical dependence upon it. Like, I smoked heavy for a couple of months once, like everyday heavy, like some pretty good shit too. And when I quit, I felt a little edgy for 3 days. That's about it. You know, 3 months of taking Xanax at the amount that I was smoking, I might be dead if I just quit. If I did the same way I acted with marijuana as I acted with Xanax, and I did that with Xanax, I might be dead. And marijuana is Schedule 1, and Xanax is Schedule 4 because it has these supposed medicinal purposes. But that's what the part that I don't get is, like, if it's medicine, it's medicine. If it's medicine, it should be covered like any other medicine. So, you know, that's what I'm going to ask my psychiatrist today. And unfortunately, my voice is tore up and my throat hurts. So, I won't be able to read my book, which I figured 2 weeks I'll have that thing ready. And post it on here for anybody at all who cares to listen to it. Boy, does it have resonance for me in my current state. And those unfamiliar with the book, I won't spoil that, but I was like, yeah, there's a reason why, you know, I gravitated toward this book when it came out in 1982. I actually read it when it came out accidentally somehow. I don't know if I used to just make frequent trips to the library. And for you people, younger people, libraries are these buildings where they have these old things in them that are like made out of paper that have words on them. You know, a Kindle to me, it's not a good thing. I don't even know what a Kindle is. It's like, yeah, I don't want a Kindle. Kindling is bad. I guess that's how people read nowadays. I read Bram Stoker's Dracula off of the computer, and that's the only book that I ever read off of non-paper form. And it was like hurt my eyes and shit, you know, and I didn't like it. But anyways, as usual, I'm just jumping all over the place from here to there to there. The main thing I wanted to talk about, though, I talked about. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know why people, the shame thing is it's just the worst fucking thing the human beings invented, I think. Is this whole idea of shame. And it's like, it holds so many people back from living their lives and being themselves. And just, you know, I was watching some dumb ass English show called Sex Education or something on Netflix, and they were like, own your own narrative, you know, accept who you are, and you know, don't be ashamed of who you are unless those two things that I talked about are involved. Then that shame is there for a reason. It's like, I'm not ashamed that I got a Jethro Bodine education, that you know, I have 9.5 official years of schooling. I went to the 10th grade part of the time, but after that I was just trying to stay alive, and then there was no more schooling for me. I'm not ashamed of that, you know. I'm barely a high school dropout, because I think high school is 10, 11, and 12, and I made like half a year of the 10th grade, so I'm almost a grade school dropout. But man, I'm not ashamed of that. Why are people ashamed of these things, you know? You could always say like exigent circumstances, you know. But the reason why I'm not ashamed of that is like that there was other things involved. It wasn't like I wasn't like, I think I would like to remain an ignorant person and not learn anything. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like a conscious choice. Like if I would have left that guy out there in the wheelchair, it's like, I think I'd just like to see how blue his face gets. You know, it wasn't anything like that. So, but yeah, it's just that shame thing is just so detrimental to people, you know. And like I said, I'd tell you my whole story, because you'll find out from that book that that's what you got, and that's about it. But I would tell you my whole story, but the people involved in it, they have that shame monster, and they would not like me to do that. I've already told some things probably that would get me in trouble, but my family don't watch these. Only you guys. So, and not, you know, if I break 100 views, I'm surprised. So, you know. But I like to talk about serious things. Life has always been a serious business for me. I mean, you grow up with a father like mine, and where there's all these heavy consequences, and you grow up around violence, and you almost get killed in school, and then almost die from having a spinal tumor, and then almost end up in a wheelchair, and you have a psychotic break when you're 16, and then you get CRPS. I mean, having a life like that, why in the hell would I want to talk about the nuances of the character of Jon Snow on Game of Thrones? What the fuck, man? Life itself is way more interesting than fiction to me. I mean, I enjoy fiction because a lot of fiction resonates, you know, like that book. That book will resonate with a lot of people, I bet. Especially Benzo people, because it has a lot to do with isolation, and a lot to do with loneliness, and a lot to do with rejection and things like that. All the things that all us Benzo people know all too well, you know. But when I got it and first read it, it was 1982, and I was nimble as a mountain goat, man. I was roofing my folks' house, and just to piss my dad off, because he was like not necessarily afraid of heights, but he had to have like a rope belt on, because we had a pretty steep roof. So he had a rope belt on that was tied to an apple tree in the back, because he was afraid of falling. Me, you know, the gable, the point of the roof, I used to walk across that motherfucker, just like a tightrope walker, man. I walk all over that roof. I didn't give a fuck. It's hard to imagine that now, the state that I'm in, where I got every step is a danger now. But yeah, I think I did that partly just to piss him off, you know. And there wasn't much he could say about it, because I was doing everything he told me to do. I was shingling the roof, and I was doing the work that he told me to do. I remember one thing that this might explain our relationship, or my relationship, I mean, of course, with my dad a little better, is he was really a strong dude because he grew up working on a farm. So he was carrying like God, those bundles of asphalt shingles. I don't know how much they weigh, but he was carrying like 3 of them on his shoulder. And he weighed right around 200 pounds anyway. So that's like 400 pounds. And I'm walking behind him on the ladder, right, with my hands. And he took a misstep, and I was following him too closely. And he took a step back with hard-soled shoes and stepped on my fingers. And you're talking about like at least 300 pounds. I don't know how much those asphalt bundles of shingles weighed, but he had a couple of them on his shoulders. And I didn't say a damn word. I didn't say nothing. I didn't even wince. I just was like, and he took a step back up, and I flexed my hand to make sure none of the fingers were broken, and I climbed up on the ladder and I did my work. But yeah, maybe that's the reason why I'm not real fond of video games either. It's like life can be very interesting. And, you know, like I said, I played this video game. It was called Overkill, and it was on I think I just played it on the regular PlayStation, and I think this was in the 90s. But when I finally beat the game, I actually felt ashamed of myself. And I was like, you know, how many hours have I spent playing this game when I could have been doing something else? What exactly have I accomplished here by finishing this game off, you know? And I don't mean to disparage any gamers, because, you know, I screw around and waste time and do stuff, you know, like I play just billiards on the computer while I listen to books and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think that when you get old, and I've just been an old man for so long because I've had all those horrible life experiences. I don't ever remember being a child, really, you know. Because like I said, when I was 9 years old, I really didn't have any emotional reaction to my brother's suicide. That's how already alienated from my emotions I was, you know. I don't ever remember really like being like a child. You know, I childlike in only the way that like I'm innocent. Like I used to not cover myself like that, because to me a body is just a thing, you know. The person inside the body is the important thing. And I've always, you say, well, of course you thought that way, you know, you was all fucked up since the time you was 15, 16 years old. But that's just the way I've always thought of things, you know. It's like you know, it's I was naive about that, you know. And there's videos on here that I can't take down in other accounts where it's like I'm showing way too much skin. And like I showed, I didn't do a good job of it, but I showed where I don't have any calf muscle on my leg. But you can pause and see. I watched it later, and I was like, well, I should have showed the difference in the size of my knee and the calf to show you that I don't have any calf muscle from this officially inconclusive disease that I've had for 32 years. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a person that's as odd as me and that's had as odd a life as I've had, it's almost criminal if I don't talk about it, because it's just too unusual. It's just too weird. And it's just I'm going to say something that's going to sound egotistical. Like, I can realize I can drone on and blah 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 and whatnot. I know myself pretty well, but sometimes I feel like I can't help but be interesting. It's like, and you know, I talk to people, and I talked to this one person. They were like, talking about some of the stuff that I talk about on here, and they said, well, it makes you an interesting person. And I said, you know what? I would like to be less interesting. I would like to have less horror, murder, violence, surgery, near-death experiences. I would like to have less of all that in my history. And it's like, yeah, I would like to be less fucked up in the head as far as like, I would like to fit in with people better. I would like to uh, not alienate people as much as I do in person, where you get that look like they're looking at something strange they've never seen before, like they're looking at Bigfoot or something. It's like, like, I can't help that, man. I can't help being weird. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. I excuse the profanity to anybody that's you know, a religious type person, but you know, I watched my brother carry out a gun at 9 years old and was there in the house during his suicide. You know, my dad used to sharpen a knife, talk about gutting people. I knew for a fact that he killed at least one person. I had an uncle that was a serial killer. I had another one that's gone now. Well, I can't say this shit, man. See, the stuff is so bad I can't even say it because I have to have respect for the living. That I might not want to have this stuff known, you know. And they don't really have no reason to be ashamed of it. But it's that damn shame thing, man. If shame was in this room, I'd shoot it with a shotgun. Shame, like, it's just so destructive. It's been so destructive in my life, man. I've gotten over it, of course, through a lot of trial and torture. Not trial and error, trial and torture. And I told a story on here once about how I had to stand naked in this room with this woman to have a thermography test. You know, I never met this woman before in my life, and because it's a head-to-toe thermography test, you got to be naked. So I'm just standing there naked, and they dim the lights a little bit, but she's got to have some light to work by, and she's like standing over there, and I'm all high as shit on, I had a ganglionic nerve block shot up with lidocaine and novocaine, and I never would touch heroin or never had heroin. But that's the best I ever felt in my life. I said, must be the dragon that those guys chase, because, man, I was floating on a cloud. And I told that story elsewhere on here. But yeah, I used to be ashamed of, and have shame. It just kind of got like beat out of me. It's just like too many damn things like that in my history. And then, you know, I gradually, I got older and wiser and realized like the two things. And realized like all these people that are ashamed of being associated with just bad things, and that bad things happen to them, and bad, you know, plenty of bad stuff's happened to me, and they're ashamed over it. And I'm like, it's so wrong-headed and illogical, and you know, you're only responsible for what you do and what you don't do, not what happens to you, not the people around you, you know, not the family you're born into, you know, not your father, not your mother, not anybody. It's all about you, man. It's all about personal responsibility and your own personal behavior. And yeah, I wish I would have accomplished more in my life and done more things, and I wasn't reduced to playing the Crackle Barrel Sage on YouTube, but it is what it is. You know, this is how things turned out for me. And I'm still holding out, and I'm still believing, because I'm not what you would call a religious guy. I have my beliefs, but I know for a fact belief is a very powerful thing. So I am believing that they're going to fix my leg, and then I'm going to be able to walk right again, because I learned how to walk twice. In my first surgery, when I had the spinal tumor removed, and then when I had spinal reconstruction, 2 years later, I had to learn how to walk over again twice. So I can do it 3 times. And maybe the third time will be a charm and I won't have to do it no more. So I'm hoping the orthopedist can do something with my leg and get me walking again. And then the whole ball game changes. Because I don't have to sit around and just struggle with benzo issues. I don't have to sit around and have nothing to do but take up an hour of your time. You know, I can't even clean my house right now. I paid somebody to do it, but there have been AOL for a while. Absence without leave. And they didn't ask me. They just, you don't pay people up front. But I was like, yeah, all I need you to do is a couple of things. And no return phone calls or nothing like that. But I got that $20 limit. So, you know, I only paid him for $20 worth of housework, which isn't much at all. But I gotta have like my floors clear, so when I fall, I'm not like bashing my head on cans of cat food or something like that. I got cans of cat food piled up in the living room in boxes that I ordered from Walmart because I can't carry them from one side to the other. So that's why this is such a huge emotional deal for me. This lack of mobility, that's my independence, and I don't have a whole lot of people I can depend on, and I don't like being at the mercy of other people because, as we have established, I have been at the mercy of some very, 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 shall we say, intriguing characters. And I have not always enjoyed that. And anyways, of course I could prattle on and prattle on. I've had, I was just thinking about that whole demon thing and how like maybe that's why I tend to run at the mouth, and I don't like small talk. I don't like, I want to talk about, I don't like to talk politics. Why do people like to talk politics? I like to talk human things, like people's lives, and people are very sensitive and they got shame involved in their lives. I like to know about people's lives, and they got trust issues in there too and whatnot, and even I express that to a degree, but you gotta understand I'm talking to the whole world. Potentially, I'm really only talking to probably 100 people, but potentially I'm leaving this out for the whole world to see. So, any crazy person could be on here, but I'm talking about like a one-on-one thing when I'm talking to a neighbor or something like that. Like, I want to hear about you. I want to hear about your life. I want to hear about, how you feel about things, what you believe, I don't want to talk about TV shows. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about trivial crap. I mean, life is short, man. Nobody knows that better than me. And old Joe Two Trees in that book I'm going to read, he knew about that stuff too. And, but yeah, I love that phrase, man. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. I have to look that up to make sure I'm quoting it accurately, because as I have expressed on here before, I have a habit of rewriting things on the fly. And yeah, and who am I to rewrite Ernest Hemingway, for God's sakes? But yeah, I think he said a man can be destroyed, but not defeated, I think was the phrase. And I refuse to be defeated. I refuse to, I refuse to just stop trying. I just refuse. And as much as I hate doctors, they have to be part of that trying process. And I have to trust them to do something with my leg to get me walking right again. So I don't know what the alternative is, because maybe they can drain all that fluid out of there and get me some physical therapy. The way it used to be with physical therapy is that the insurance would only cover it for a month, and then they left you on your own. And that's when you were really fucked up, you know. That's like because physical therapy is like super expensive. And I might as well tell you a funny story that about physical therapy that I had. I believe I had it at Altman Hospital, as a matter of fact, which was the last hospital that I was in. But anyways, this is after one of my spinal surgeries, and I'm in like my early 20s, and one of my physical therapists was a dude that had like a wandering eye, so he was really hard to talk to. But his eye would just, you'd talk to him and his eye would just go over here, you know, like it was really hard. He was a smart guy, but it was really hard to concentrate on talking to him. My other physical therapist was just this hot as hell woman, and she has no shame in any of this, so I'll just tell you her name. And she had a fiance and was getting married at the time, but her name was Lori Gray. It was spelled well, what am I doing? I don't understand the internet. People could look her up, but this is more me. This is not her anyway. I mean, what the hell am I doing even saying her name? But anyways, I don't even think it matters. But hell, I don't know. I'm not a tech guy. I'm from a previous age, man. I remember when Pong was. I played the first like Pong game, and like whenever it came out in '74 or '75. I'm just an old fuck. But anyways, I was a young dude at this time, and luckily for me, I was wearing jeans. But Lori Gray was stretching me out, and she was hotter than hell. And she was just, I like interesting looking women, you know. I just the standard. I like someone that's got that's like an Ileana Douglas is an example, or somebody that's just got an interesting face, you know. That's just not your standard ideal of beauty or something like that. This girl had that going on, and she was like 25 or something like that. I was like 20 or whatever. But she's doing this stretch where I can't bend my legs to show you, but she's bending my legs back and stretching me out before the workout by leaning all her weight on my lower legs and pushing my knees up toward my chest. So I'm feeling her body weight, man. And I pop full wood. I mean, like, it ain't going nowhere type of wood. And, you know, and I had jeans on, luckily, and not sweats. Why I had jeans on, I don't know, but thank the good Lord I did. So I start like, you know, I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, oh, that hurts. Oh, you know, and I was like rolling around and gasping around and like I was in pain and stuff and trying to keep my legs bent to hide the boner. And she was looking at me like real dubiously. I think she understood what was happening because she already knew that I wasn't a pussy and wasn't just gonna like be like, oh, the pain, like Dr. Smith, oh, the pain, you know. So she was kind of looking at me like, yeah. And I said, just let me sit up for a while, man. That hurt, you know. And I sat up, you know, and I don't remember the rest of it too much. But I do remember that part of it for sure. It's like she just had her full weight on me, like she was laying on top of me. And I don't know. I think her breasts, to make it sound more clinical, were like resting on top of my knees, and she was just using her weight as like she was smallish and I'm fairly large to I guess it would be, what would it be stretching out? It'd be stretching out my quads just by leaning all that weight on me, man. And that wasn't going anywhere for like a long time, you know. I said, just leave me sit here. And then like I don't even think I had the proper shirt for it, because, you know, when that happens and you're a teenage boy, and to the life I had, I guess even at the age of 20, I was a teenage boy. You have a shirt, you just have a long-tailed shirt like that's supposed to be tucked in. You just throw it over top of your boner. I think I had a t-shirt on, so I think I was screwed in that regard. But I remember like looking around furtively and then going off and working on out on these Orbitron machines, and where you could sit down and you like I don't know if they still have those, but like I was doing like leg extensions and stuff. But yeah, that stuff wasn't going nowhere. Yeah, once that part of my body became alert and like, oh, you have a beautiful woman laying on top of you, son. it wasn't it wasn't going nowhere. But I remember that whole thing. I felt she was just looking at me like she wasn't buying any of it too. She was like, what is really going on here? And I don't notice if she noticed any bulge or anything like that. But I was just like rolling around like, oh, that hurt. Oh, and I'm not an actor. You can tell that already. I'm a bad actor. And, she was just kind of looking at me like, come on, Steve. I know you better than that. You've been through like 3 spinal surgeries, So I think she understood that I got aroused and was just trying to cover it up by rolling around on the ground and keeping my knees on the mat. We were on a mat. Keeping my knees bent. But yeah, that story is longer than it needed to be. Just as the organ in the story was longer than it needed to be at that particular time. But yeah, can almost remember what she looks like, but not quite. I remember curly, dirty blonde hair, and 115 pounds, maybe 5'5". Kind of like a naturally tan skin, which was an odd mix with the blonde hair. Yeah, that was my 2 therapists though. The beautiful woman and the guy with the eye that you would talk to him and it would be normal 1 minute and then his eye would go over here, and you would have to you would have to try to be polite, about it, But his eye would just say whoop over here, and then it would say whoop, whoop, and be moving all over the place. No, I'm just killing time because I don't want to get my day started. I don't really want to go out in the cold on a walker, on a bus, and risk my ass out there for a freaking 20-minute interview with a psychiatrist, or more accurately, psychiatric nurse. All I know is he's got the power of the pen, so he could write me those volumes. So here's another over an hour video of me just blathering and blathering and blathering on like I do's. But I couldn't read my book. Just couldn't read my book this morning. I didn't have the nerves for it or the voice for it. So I had to use up my I had to keep that voice blocking demon at bay one way or another. But yeah. So I guess this is what this. It's interesting. I would need like a whole team of psychiatrists to try to figure my ass out. But yeah, that's might be part of the reason why I am so garrulous and mouthy and wordy and verbose and loquacious and use all those damn unnecessary words to mean that I talk a whole shitload, is because of that past experience where I had that psychotic break where I was thinking that demons weren't allowing me to talk. So, anyways, as I look at the beautiful 8-foot tall hole in my wall that yet remains, as I look at the beautiful sunshine belying the 25-degree weather outside, as I look at the utter disaster that my room is with the many plates of food on the floor that I'm afraid to carry, and as I look at myself in this monitor, I can only think, man, I hope that I can be interesting to somebody besides myself, but at least I entertain one person. And that's me. I have a good time when I am talking and telling my stories. And sometimes they are maybe inappropriate. And believe me, I could tell you a lot more inappropriate things than I do, but I just have to respect other people. So what we got from this is psychotic episode only two things people should be ashamed of, and shame is evil. And if you have ever pop wood during a therapy session, don't try to Robert De Niro your way through it. Don't try. Don't. Yeah. Who's a current guy that's a top actor? Yeah. Don't try to Gene Hackman your way out of it, man. Just kind of sit up and own up to it. Because that made me feel like an idiot telling that story. Oh, it hurts, and I'm just kind of like trying to keep my legs bent so it's not poking out too much. Anyways, goodbye.